Welcome to Pallilo Points. I'm Brandon Stranger, Sports Map Houston. That's Charlie Pallilo. You can catch him on the Charlie Pallilo Show weekdays 10 a.m. to noon on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. If you haven't hit like on the video yet, do that. Subscribe to the channel. We do appreciate all the support. Hey, Charlie, welcome in. Up until about 8:30 on Sunday night, my question to you was going to be about the Rockets reportedly trying to woo back an ex, but instead, Mark Berman tweeted that Lovie Smith was in strong consideration for Texans head coach. And now, as we're recording this, it hasn't been officially announced, but it looks like that's going to be the plan. So my first question is is this just about optics?
What a perfectly blah hire this will be. If the battle cry might be, well, at least they didn't hire Josh McCown. How compelling is that for the franchise, for the fan base? I believe that while Caserio, Easterby, Cal McNair, right, over their dead bodies would they utter, well, we recognize the direction the wind was blowing with our fans, with local media, with national media, with anyone pretty much with a pulse, that hiring Josh McCown, now maybe it would have worked, but it would not have changed, that hiring Josh McCown would have been absurd, completely, not underqualified, completely unqualified for the job. Add in the stakes of the game, Brian Flores and all that Josh McCown would not have been deemed sellable, viable. Did the NFL suggest similarly in any way? I do not know, but I think that was a kibosh element on the Josh McCown candidacy. Relative to Kevin O'Connell, maybe he said, I want your job as opposed to the Vikings job. Brian Daboll, who we never heard mentioned, I want your job. I know the Giants aren't exactly football Valhalla now, but you know what? That's a better job because at this moment in time, under this ownership and management team, any other job seems to be about a better job, including Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence. So the Texans, after their deliberate, as Nick Caserio, exhaustive search, as Caserio put it, they promote from within, and they promote a guy saying, we've concluded our follow-up conversations with Lovie Smith after having, in the spirit of transparency and embracing the fan base and the passion for Houston Texans football, that we're going to let you know every coach that we interview. They disclosed they concluded follow-up conversations with Lovie Smith after never once having said, hey, Lovie Smith's a candidate. What is it? Something's rotten in Denmark in terms of how exactly this process went. Lovie Smith's not a ridiculous hire, but this is what comes out of this search. Many will say, how Houston Texans-ish.
Well, and they'd say that because we've seen this before, specifically in the GM search, when they spend $500,000 for Korn Ferry to put together a list of GMs, and then they end up hiring Nick Caserio, who, again, Nick Caserio is not a bad hire. And in this situation, Lovie Smith's not a bad hire. It's the means in which and kind of the path that you took to making that hire is what everyone's questioning about them. And I'd say this, too, is like, you say, yes, it's not a ridiculous. I would go beyond that. I'd say, given the results on the field, shouldn't Lovie Smith have been one of the main people in consideration for that job?
You can argue for that, but if so, how come he clearly, they're going to, what's the word? Lie about it. That every other candidate, we disclose this guy, we disclose this guy, we disclose that guy, and then at the end, Lovie Smith looks like he's the guy, and yeah, we talked to him previously, it just slipped our mind to mention it. Lovie's tenure in Chicago, all in all, was fine. 9 years as the head coach. Okay, he peaked early. Year 3, they went to the Super Bowl with Rex Grossman as the starting quarterback, by the way. Subsequent 6 years, only one more playoff appearance. Only one more playoff win, but one little playoff win sounding real good around here about now. 2 years with the Buccaneers when they were just a mess. He was miserable. They got fired. He got fired. 5 years in college, total failure at Illinois, which is a tough job in the Big Ten, and the dynamics are different, recruiting versus a salary cap league and all that. Lovie Smith as the defensive coordinator was certainly competent. It's not as if the Texans' defense was good in 2021, other than perhaps compared to the Texans' offense. But in a vacuum, hiring Lovie Smith would be, retread. 63 years old after you interview all these 40-somethings, and Caserio's supposed to be young and progressive, and Jack Easterby, ethereal and touched by God. Lovie Smith, how uninspirational is that? But promoting Lovie Smith, you're not going with someone who'd never been considered head coach worthy, David Culley, or Josh McCown, who basically had zero qualifications for the job. Culley was hired. McCown had seemed to become the front runner for the job. So Lovie Smith as the fallback is not going to make Texans fans feel good about it, but think of it this way. You could feel worse.
No, they could feel worse. And again, when I say the results on the field, I know they weren't barn beaters as far as being a great defense, but I think doing more with less is probably the award that I would give to Lovie Smith for the 2021 season with the Texans as Texans DC.
They looked competently coached defensively as opposed to, say,
Everything
the Rockets.
else.
The Rockets,
Okay.
in addition to, yes, everything else with the Texans.
Yeah, I think, again, and maybe it's just one of those things where it's Stockholm Syndrome or whatever the case is, but Lovie looked like he had his area under control, especially as it pertained to the level of talent that he had to work with. So I guess, again, it's probably unfair to Lovie the path that this has taken because it is underwhelming. But two years in a row, it looks like Josh McCown has been the front runner up until what seems to be the 0 hour, in which case they make a last-minute pivot and hire someone else. Is this going to be the trend until the, PR sentiment until the public is just generally worn down, until they go, okay, fine, let's see what Josh McCown is?
Well, Jack Easterby might suggest only God knows. In the interim, if there's to be a third time is the charm for Josh McCown in the Can I Interview Again with You Houston Texans Derby, how about he actually goes and coaches a little football somewhere? And I'm not counting part-time quarterback's coach of his son at some high school in North Carolina. I mean, really earn at least one spur, right? I'm not earn your spurs and get some skins on the wall, a little coaching credibility. To be the head coach of an NFL team, one of 32 jobs that exist. So Josh McCown needs to go be someone's quarterback's coach. Again, not a high school in North Carolina. Will any other NFL team take him on its staff, or is this strictly the insider Jack and Nick deal?
Well, and I guess that's part of my confusion too, is if this person that we're talking about, Josh McCown, if he were someone who seemed genuinely interested in coaching, then why wasn't he coaching anywhere? Why wasn't he doing anything on any staff? And for him to be out of football completely outside of, volunteering at his son's high school team, I just don't understand where the passion, how you can justify that at any point as a professional NFL team who, is running $1 million business. How do you sell that to your fan base that someone who you think is going to be this great mind hasn't shown any sort of inclination to go out there and put in the time at any other coaching position? You
cannot rationally sell that, and it plays that with the tacit or spoken approval of Cal McNair, that Jack Easterby and Nick Caserio have this little play toy that they can do whatever the heck they choose to do with it. Hiring Josh McCown would have been an insult to the fans, to the profession of coaches, but everyone's been spared this time. But if a year from now it's, well, at the time we thought Lovie Smith was a good hire, then Nick Caserio will have to be fired. Right? If you go 2 for 2 and you go with a coach of zero interest to everyone else ever at any other point in time, and after 1 year you pay the guy off more than $20 million in total for the 1 year's work, and then Lovie Smith, but I would not think Lovie Smith is a disaster. So now the onus is on Nick Caserio to upgrade the roster from disaster to merely not good. And if they trade Watson, if they trade Tunsil, that's $32 million more dead salary cap dollars on top of the 35 they already have. So it's going to be at least one more year where the training wheels are on for Nick before we can judge, can he really ride the bike? But year 2 is not a redshirt year because the lost year 1, it was his choice on David Culley, he and Hack's choice on David Culley.
Well, I think you probably said it the best. This is probably one of the more underwhelming developments that's happened in this coaching search. And I think it's disappointing just because you really had an opportunity to reset expectations about the franchise. And instead, it almost seems to kind of reinforce the things that many outsiders already thought about the franchise, which was that it's just in general disarray and that it's one PR gaffe after another. And again, I really think that's a shame when it comes to Lovie Smith, because a guy who's put in as many years as he has in the league and, again, did as a respectable a job as he did with so little to work with last year. I think it's just a shame for him.
Except when those game checks start, then Lovie will be doing just fine, as David Culley did just fine.